Hello, everybody.
Welcome to the recap of the second game in this CARLSEN-CARUANA match. CARLSEN taking the white pieces after yesterday's pretty thrilling game.
Yep, we're gonna go over the game, take you guys through a recap, and for those that maybe joined a little late, we'll get to see the beginning of the game. So we're gonna start. This is game 2 of the World Chess Championships between Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana. Magnus was white, Fabiano with the black pieces today. Switched from yesterday, and I guess we weren't totally surprised, but still D4 from Magnus was not everyone's prediction, let's say. But I think personally one thing that played into it was maybe the fact that Fabi just plays the Petrov all the time with a good score, and E4, E5, Knight F3, Knight F6, maybe he just didn't want to deal with that, so he went with D4.
Yeah, I'm sure both players have prepared a few first moves as white, E4, D4, maybe C4 for this match.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I don't think they wanted to deal with that. So we had this position and basically transposed into a Queen's Gambit declined, one of the main lines. The Knight F3 choice by Magnus was a little inflexible. There are some positions where with the knight on G1 here, white might play pawn takes pawn, followed by bishop G5, and there's some lines where you put the knight on E2. So with the knight on F3, it's sort of inflexible there, and we were pretty certain that we would see this main line with bishop F4 and E3, and indeed that's what happened in the game. Bishop F4, castle, E3, still in main theory here.
Mm-hmm.
Probably this is the
two big choices here: knight D7 or C5.
Yeah, knight D7. Usually the move is C5, and there's a few moves that have been played here, where black would play knight E4, for example, knight H5. But this type of position was possible, but Fabiano, instead of knight BD7, he decided to play C5.
Still more direct, often initiates some trades.
Yes.
Tension right away.
Yes. C5, and actually we're getting into pretty serious theoretical territory here. After D takes C5, bishop C5, this is a position that a lot of top players have played before. It's a really topical line at the moment, and black just goes for a really direct play in the center. He doesn't want to let white play C5, get this easy game with lots of space. Instead, he's going for the immediate counterattack and shows that he's willing to take an isolated pawn in the center with the intention of playing knight C6 and often D4 really quickly to get rid of that pawn once again. To queen C2, knight C6, just developing. White going with A3.
Yeah, with queen C2, sometimes your rook goes to D1 because the black's queen is lined up on that file. Also, your queen and bishop can line up on that diagonal. The diagonal C2 to H7. Just get off the back rank. Give yourself some space to work with there.
And oftentimes you leave this, try your best to leave this bishop as long as possible. You know, you wish your opponent would just take there so you can play this in one move. Whereas if you play bishop E2, then black's more tempted to take, so you have to waste time. Queen A5, don't fall for this one. B4 does not work here. And actually B4 doesn't usually work in these positions in general because of knight takes pawn. Rook D1, rook D8, supporting the pawn.
First surprise, small surprise, that rook E8 is by far the main move recently, and he opts for rook D8, which I'm not too familiar with.
Right, and I think in this line, I have seen this type of position played quite a bit with Queen B1, and
it's a theoretical discussion right now. There's a few games with Hikaru Nakamura on the black side of this that you can check the databases in, but this gets a bit sharp. Black has been, I think, mainly holding, but Yeah, it was just a different choice.
Different choice, yeah, and obviously something that Fabi had prepared to do. Bishop c5, queen c2, and instead he went with rook d8 this time. Rook d8, and after rook d8, bishop e2 instead of knight d2, which seems unnecessary now because you've got e5 prevented. That was the main idea of rook e8. Just bishop e2, knight e4, and Fabi immediately goes for this pawn structure, giving the double isolated pawns to white, but obviously with these pawns ready to capture one another, you're not going to be stuck with these weak pawns for long. You always have something like takes and c4 to get rid of them. We were thinking the attacking prospects with knight g5 are pretty serious, and of course this would just drop the queen, for example, and it doesn't get much better if you take this way because these pieces are just so awkward, and I think we're on our way to losing that bishop, for example.
Yeah, if we talk about that position that arose after b takes c3 on move 13, white is a little bit ahead in development. Both bishops are out, and white's looking to drum up an initiative, maybe against black's king. There's a bit of an imbalance there. Black, on the other hand, has a better pawn structure, or a pretty very secure, safe one, but needs to figure out what to do with that bishop on c8.
Right.
And then after that, the rook on e8 can come into the game. So black needs complete development. White needs to, try to use that development advantage and come up with some counterplay, dynamic counterplay, because the pawn on a3 and c3, those aren't great pawns by any stretch.
Right.
So both sides have some goals, and at the same time, Fabi's just playing solid. He's playing black, and he doesn't even need to go for more.
Yep.
So it's pretty clear.
So from here, Fabi played h6, and I thought that this was a very good move. Necessary. There are a lot of moves he could have played instead, but the move knight to g5 actually looked extremely annoying. And the nice thing about h6 is you don't just stop one move. It seems like you stop all the attacking prospects in one move. So h6 I thought was a nice touch. a4 was played by Magnus. At the time, I think the move a4 looked like, maybe unnecessary because the pawn couldn't be taken, but the point is you may as well safeguard that pawn, and now ideas like taking on d5 and playing c4 make a lot more sense because you're not dropping a pawn at the end of any variation. So a4 was just kind of a caretaking move.
Yeah, knight e7, immediately white replied with knight e5 because that's just a square for the knight,
Right.
and it opens up the bishop on e2, which would like to be part of the middle game as well.
Right.
So Magnus was following up with what he was supposed to do, which is maximizing his pieces while they're developed.
Seemed logical. Bishop d6 was played. I think the other main move we were considering was bishop d7, because this bishop has been the problem the whole game, and if you get any chance to develop it, usually you would take it. And there's a few things to consider in this position. Namely, if we take the bishop pair and play pawn takes on d5,
to undouble, trade off your double pawn. Yep.
these pawns are definitely weaker. We're going to try to make use of the two bishops, but for example, there's a lot of different moves that hit the knight here, like c4, e4, but a lot of the time there's queen takes c3, and the tactics work out for black with the bishop hanging, for example, something like this, queen c3.
Definitely some tactics involved there.
Pick up the pieces.
Got the feeling black was okay here.
Yeah.
The rooks can double on a d file. You have these pawns on a4 and c3 to target. Bishops are good, but when you have weaknesses attached with them, it's a different story.
Yeah. But Fabi's move was nice. Bishop d6. He just wants to play something like queen c7, maybe consider move f6, but just bring the pieces back to civilization here. Maybe play b6, bishop b7. If we take on d5, I don't think he could play knight takes because of
some tactics once again.
Queen takes c3.
Everything is with a check or with tempo. Queen hanging or e2 with check.
Right. And, or sorry, he can play knight takes. I meant to say, I don't think white can play knight c4 because of tactics. Queen takes c3. Otherwise, that would be winning on the spot.
Yeah.
Knight takes.
Yeah, black gets a knight d5 with tempo, starts to break free. Well, then black's looking at an advantage because of pawn structure.
Yeah.
Queen c7, c3, a4 target. So some caution for sure for white dealing with this pawn structure.
Yeah. So bishop d6 takes, bishop f3 was played. I think probably the last interesting move that we calculated before things started to get pretty drawish was knight takes on f7, which looked like a pretty fun move at the time. Fun to calculate. You got a lot of material hanging. For example, knight takes here. It seems like white comes out on top here with the pin at the end. If black takes on f7, this was the idea. Trying to get the queen in here and then play c4, taking advantage of the pin on the rook on d6.
What prompts you to look for an attack like knight f7, particularly in this position? What about black's position sort of is like, you know what, we should be maybe sacking, or maybe we can get away with being down a piece?
Yeah, I think the first thing that you look for is development. You say that the fact that the rooks aren't connected, number one, presents back rank opportunities. A lot of times the king would be stuck back there, especially with this square control. The second thing is that the rook is not defended by the other rook, which means there's a lot of times there's just loose pieces in the position. That's why knight c4 comes to mind. You also look at all these pieces on the open file, and you look at taking advantage of them just because they're undefended, they're loose. You see some tactics with the x-rays here, but I think it starts with just development. You got that development edge that leads you to say, okay, let's at least check for the tactics. And as soon as you start doing some calculations, put some attacking ideas together in combination with this idea of the fact that the back rank is not covered, everything just comes full circle. So I think that this was something we were considering trying to play. Queen g6, no, c4 first, and
yeah,
just
trying to make it work. Yeah,
this is one that did end up working.
Trading the rooks, and then yeah, and then just bring the other rook to d1, and it's one of those cases where two rooks for a piece. Sorry, a rook for two pieces. Often the two pieces are better, but here the bishop is not developed, so it doesn't really count, and that rook d8 check is coming in. So there were some lines to watch out for, like this, but I think we found some tactics that didn't work. If we look at that line, knight f7, king f7, yeah, bishop check, king over c4. There's this queen c7 move, and then
gets back to defense. Queen c7, queen g6, and now if knight f6, for example, we were looking at this, which was actually pretty nice. Give the check, king h7, king h8, and rook d1 at the end, coming with rook d8, and that's all because, first of all, this bishop not developed, and again, the rook is not covering the last rank. So these are all the attacking motifs that you want to look for. So what was the reason that he didn't play knight f7?
So king g8.
Here. Was it c4?
c4.
Queen c7 we played?
Queen c7.
Queen g6, and with mate here?
We had a move here.
What did we play here? First of all, after takes, okay, material is even if we take. The idea is also this mate, which is kind of annoying. Bishop g6.
I mean, there's also the idea is like, if you're really worried, you could play like queen e7, and you're not getting mated there.
You're not getting mated, bishop comes out. No, I think we had a move after c4. c4, knight b4.
Uh-huh.
I think
queen g6?
I think c4, knight b4. I'm trying to remember. c4, knight b4, queen g6. I think we're getting mated the same way, actually.
This one is a mate.
Yeah. Well, knight f7 was the most interesting move we calculated, and at the time I was like, hey, Magnus, buddy, why don't you play this?
One more time. Bishop check. Now I'm feeling silly.
Well, it might run this way there, bud. King e7? No, we calculated king g8 the whole time.
Yep.
King e7 doesn't make any sense. Here, queen c7, queen g6.
Threatening queen e8 and bishop g6 mate.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Is this the game? No, but this, to me, instead of knight f7, the move bishop f3 was played, and it just petered out to a draw, which Magnus actually had to work for. But this line was probably the last really interesting line of the game for us that we calculated.
I was looking at this move, but queen check on e8 or there, but queen e8.
Okay. Here.
Yeah, rook takes d6, queen d6, rook d1.
And again, maybe queen.
and then
Queen e5.
Well, I was just thinking that
even if
g4, like h4, it's like,
because you're still in this like sort of state of paralysis.
Yeah.
But this at least sort of sort of survives for a minute here.
Well, you can play queen f6.
G6 or something.
Yeah. No, but yeah, it gets sharp. It gets sharp. Is there? What are we missing? We looked at this. Our memories are bad, or we trusted the chat. Knight takes f7. King takes f7. Bishop takes. Rook takes.
Bishop h5. King g8.
I'm frustrated, Amon.
Well, it's king g8 for sure.
Okay. c4.
Did we show knight f6? Yes. So this is the one we looked at the start. I mean,
you just double the rooks here. We didn't look at this, right? Or
we didn't. But I mean,
this is fine for white. No, white has a pawn, and it's very hard to develop because even if you imagine queen c5, b6, bishop b7, I'll have rook d7, and I'll be up a pawn, even in those positions. This looks very dangerous. The lines we looked at was go back a little bit.
Here.
So queen c7.
Sure.
Queen g6.
Sure. Knight f6 takes rook d1.
Well, we have to throw in queen f7 check.
Yeah, sorry. There.
Knight f6, rook takes, queen f7, king h8.
The rook d1 works there. So this was the line we just looked at.
Yeah, and rook d1.
Yeah,
we thought this was a critical line.
Well, actually, most of our broadcast was spent on this move. It's only logical most of our analysis is also spent here. Knight takes f7.
Yeah.
Have to take.
Seems like it. Bishop takes.
Have to take.
Yes.
This is the only logical move, really, because the other moves still exist. c4. Yeah. Queen c7 was the move we were looking at, I'm pretty sure.
Otherwise, rook c6. We didn't look at rook c6.
We didn't
looked
look
at queen
rook
c7.
Here.
Knight f6.
Trying to say that everything is somehow protected. Because you don't want to play king there and allow bishop g6, but here you don't have bishop g6 and rook d8, you can take this guy.
Yeah, this stuff still scares me a little bit because I played bishop. No, in that line you just showed.
Yeah.
Bishop f7, but I think we have queen c5 because rook d8 would be a threat. But I think
like this.
Queen c5.
I'm wondering if he really considered this seriously, because maybe he just saw this line. He's like, doesn't work. One thought process from, well, Magnus was really down on time in this game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically he was spending all his time either finding dead ends like this, or just not worth the risk going for these kind of lines, because I think he understood, as did we, that when he played bishop f3, he was sort of offering a draw.
Yeah, that's right.
He was offering
a draw. So
this
was the last, well, we're not sure if the move works, but you're trying to be ambitious as white. You're looking for complications like that. Yeah. Because otherwise, positionally, you're not doing great.
Yep. Fabi played really quick this game. He's well prepared. And this is like the last moment you have to try to beat the guy. Otherwise, you're saying that he had good prep and that he just earns a draw. And that's what Magnus did here, because this line that Fabi played is queen c7, and after rook there and bishop there, black just gets developed and mobilized immediately. I still think that Magnus played quite accurately around here.
He's just worse and he has to bail out.
Yeah, I thought that he did a decent job from a worse position.
You got to get rid of your isolated pawns.
Got to get rid of this somehow, and you got to find a way to not just let the queens trade and the king walk in, because then black would probably be better. Queen d6, and although the white pawns do not look very good, he's just in time with a6 and c5, which is one of the things we were calculating. King d7, and I think king g2 runs into b5, and black gets this nice blockade, and this b pawn is actually kind of scary. So instead,
can you see that actually?
Yeah. We were thinking that after b5 is actually, despite the connected pass pawns, this...
Well, you can maintain it. Like,
this blockade is so strong.
King c6 is, so let's, f4 to bring the king in. King c6, rook there, b4.
And this just goes all the way, and then you can take, and even if he sacrifices the d pawn, the a pawn will probably fall, and white's in trouble here. White's going to be in trouble. Which would be a disaster, from Magnus's perspective, because definitely don't want to be getting in too much trouble with white. So I thought that it was nice the way he did it. He took here, and he's going to be slightly worse here. He's going to lose this pawn, but grandmasters know that this 4-on-3 in general is always a draw with the rooks on the board, unless there's something very unique about the placement of the pieces. And actually with the double pawns, it's pretty simple. You just put your king on g2 and move the rook around. So after a few more pawn moves, of course, Magnus understands that he's going to have to give that pawn up, so he sacrifices it. But despite Fabiano, he can feel proud. It's on the slightly better side of a draw, but it was a draw all the same. So a few more moves were played, and
black's just not making a passed pawn. He needs probably connected passed pawns.
Right. Yeah, you need so many more things. It's not even the same thing as yesterday, where Magnus had some pushes or pulls with the rook endgame up a pawn. This game was a pretty straightforward draw for Magnus, even though he was down a pawn. But that's not necessarily a good thing for the world champ. With the white pieces, he didn't really get anything. I think today we saw a very well-prepared and confident Fabiano Caruana.
Yeah, a good recovery from yesterday. And
so
that's game two.
That's
got
game
a rest
two.
day tomorrow, and Caruana gets white again.
Yeah. Official result is a draw for today, and that means that the match overall is still tied after 2 rounds going into the rest day. So nobody's going to be like super upset on the rest day. Everyone can just relax, sleep, recover, prepare for the next round, and which will be on Monday.
Push 'em, baby.